Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here. In artificial intelligence news, I'm asking the question, will OpenAI actually survive all of the lawsuits they're facing intact? Now, what got me thinking about this actually is a new article from CBC News by Anis Hadari, and quite frankly, everybody's piling on to OpenAI. I think it's kind of deserved, but it really begs a lot of questions that we're going to dive into. But in the backdrop of this, here's the latest news, because a group of Canadian news outlets, which include basically CBC and Radio Canada, Post Media, Metroland, the Toronto Star, the Globe and Mail, and the Canadian Press, have all launched a joint lawsuit claiming copyright infringement against ChatGPT creator OpenAI. Now, the lawsuit was filed in the Ontario Superior Court of Justice this past Friday morning, and they're looking for punitive damages for OpenAI, along with payments of any profits from the company, or rather what the company has made from using news articles from all of these organizations. It's also seeking an injunction banning OpenAI from using their news articles in the future. They're obviously not the only ones. We'll go through a quick recap of that, because if you recall, in late December of 2023, the New York Times filed a suit against the company. Now, at that time, OpenAI had said that it respected the rights of content creators and owners and was committed to working with them to ensure the benefit, the publishers benefit from AI technology and new revenue models. Some have signed up, some have not. And so by virtue of that, what we still have is a recent study also on top of this, that basically shows that OpenAI is still citing sources and references for information that they don't have these agreements with. Now, another lawsuit basically also involved authors George R.R. Martin. He wrote Game of Thrones, or is still writing Game of Thrones. I think there's one book left. And also Sarah Silverman, the comedian who authored a book whose information was apparently scraped by OpenAI to be used in ChatGPT. So if you're talking about Game of Thrones, it can quote Game of Thrones for you, like that kind of thing. So I think through all of this, some things are going to happen, and I think that really begs the question of OpenAI's survival. And I'm actually not sure if they're going to survive as they are now, meaning they might be broken up, something else may happen, but I want you to consider what I think the following is going to happen as a result of this new Canadian lawsuit, the New York Times, George R. R. Martin, Sarah Silverman, and on and on. I think what's happening and what we're seeing is OpenAI is essentially that lightning rod. They were the first one really on the scene with large language models that the world adopted. I don't know if they're the first LLM, but they were the one that the world basically had taken by storm. Now, I think they're going to be the precedent-setting standard for what happens in the entire, basically, AI industry. The law that they are making, the judgments that they receive, et cetera, is going to set the tone for not just OpenAI, but for every competitor, basically in common law or civil law across the globe. And OpenAI is basically taking those hits. OpenAI, for the record, is actively working to change copyright laws. This is my opinion, through legislation or other means that they're not really talking about. And there is actually evidence to prove that. I did a video/podcast/radio segment months ago, earlier in 2024, about a letter that was published, written by OpenAI, was published by the House of Lords. That's the upper house in the United Kingdom. And basically in this 5-page document, which was a response to the House of Lords questions on OpenAI regarding copyright, OpenAI openly admitted in that letter, you can read it, it's on the internet, they openly admitted and said that they need all of this published content online, that anything, whether it's copyrighted or published by a human online, that they can scrape, they need. And if they didn't have that, if they could only basically use things that didn't have intellectual copyright protection, meaning, let's say, data from 80 years ago, it would basically be like a novel experiment in artificial intelligence, but the AI would pretty much be useless because of all the advancements, all the writings, all the research papers, all the publications, all the authors and novels that have come out since that it's been able to absorb and therefore essentially regurgitate back in some way, shape, or form as answers in its ChatGPT format and other large language models OpenAI is working on. And so by virtue of that, what they're indicating there is to say, look, AI is the storm. Essentially, you're not going to get rid of it. It's growing. It needs all of the human content and creation out there. And so by virtue of this, how are we going to figure this out? In other words, are we just going to be sued by everybody, in which case we can't go forward? And quite frankly, our competitors in other countries like China don't have these problems. They'll just keep doing it and screw you world. Try suing a company in China. Or Are they going to get a carve out, a set aside, an exception, something along those lines that basically says, yeah, we get a carve out for this because we're training an AI model. The AI model then is not considered, let's say, an independent generative being because it's a series of algorithms, whatever their argument is going to be, and therefore it gets a pass on copyright infringement. And in the meantime, we'll try a profit sharing model, but it seems to me like they're really going to push for that. If their logic is automatically, we need this, we can't escape this, and OpenAI is not the only one. Every single one of our competitors, Amazon, Google, Anthropic, you name it, all need this as well. Well, then what? And I think that's where they're trying to push. So no matter what happens here, this is going to be precedent setting. Now, maybe this requires basically a breakup or shakeup of OpenAI. They're worth hundreds of billions of dollars now. Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI, says he wants trillions of dollars to build a supermodel, of AI, all this kind of stuff. We're going to see where this goes, but quite frankly, I think this is going to be one of those next major legal precedent in the modern world about what exactly we do with AI, the leniency we give AI or not, and also the protections or not we give to the companies that are developing it, understanding that it's not a human that is, let's say, riffing off of Game of Thrones or whatever it is. It's an artificial intelligence. And I think this is going to be one of those big legal and philosophical questions that we have. But either way, OpenAI is taking the hits. And quite frankly, I think they want to pass, and I'm not saying they deserve it, but that's what they're going for. So take that for what it's worth. And once again, as companies, publishing companies in the United States, Canada, and around the world start really piling on with these lawsuits, at some point it's going to have to come to a head. They're either going to have protections similar to what social media platforms had protection-wise here in the United States, such as Section 230, where they basically they're absolved of publishing rights, meaning they're not liable for all the horrific things somebody puts out on a Facebook, etc., or they're going to be, in which case there's going to be a massive amount of censorship on social media. I think that's where we're headed to with basically the legal framework that is being built as fast as it can around artificial intelligence. And OpenAI, I think, is going to be that guinea pig. So there you go. Take it for what it's worth. We're going to see what happens, but that's my prediction. And if I had to predict who's going to win or not, AI is probably going to win at some point. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please attempt to stay private. And for the record, I'm not wanting AI to win. I just think it's going to. Take care.